My name is Adrienne Lucas, and I'm the manager of inclusion and diversity at the One Club for Creativity. Throughout the month of May, we're collaborating with some of the top minds in advertising, design, and digital media to celebrate creativity and inspire you. I'm so excited to have Imani Ellis here with me today. Hi, Imani.
Hi, Adrienne. How are you?
I'm great. Imani Ellis is the CEO and founder of CultureCon and the Creative Collective NYC. So during today's discussion, Imani's going to tell us how she built a cultural movement, and you, our viewers, can get some tips on how to build your own. So I'm going to start by asking Imani some questions, and then I'll open up the floor for Q&A. So to get started, Imani, CultureCon has been featured in Forbes, Essence, and you've had some pretty famous faces grace the stage, like Will Smith, Tracee Ellis Ross, and John Legend. So tell us, what is CultureCon and how did it get started?
For sure. So CultureCon is a conference. It's dedicated to the next generation of world-changing doers. And so we really try to approach people from a 360 approach. So instead of just focusing on their career, just focusing on their hobbies, we really want to be inclusive of everything that kind of makes you who you are. And it really is, the granddaughter of the Creative Collective, which is a community that we created. CultureCon was born out of the idea that we didn't see a conference that really catered to everything that we wanted to see in the world.
Okay, that's amazing. So this conversation is about building cultural movements. And so those are events, programs, and ideas that are designed to inspire change. And CultureCon is just that. So in 3 years, CultureCon went from a gathering of friends, right, into a full-blown creative conference. So I want to dig into that growth and development a bit. So what is CultureCon's secret sauce for staying relevant and being sold out time after time?
I think the secret sauce is really just, starting the conversation, but asking our community to finish the conversation. So we really are collaborative, not with each other, not only with each other, but with our entire community. So we ask, our community, what do you want more of? And whatever they say, that's what we throw more into. And so I think for us, it's kind of eliminating that, element of surprise because we know that we're catering directly to our base.
Gotcha. And what exactly happens at CultureCon for people who don't know what it is?
For sure. So there's a ton of different things. So I'm an introvert, right? So a lot of people are kind of surprised by that. But when I walk into a room of thousands of people, that can be a little overwhelming for me. And so we have all different types of formats, just depending on, what does best for your personality. So there's huge kind of like stages where, Tracee Ellis Ross and Will Smith and Lena Waithe are talking, but there also are breakout groups, there's small workshops. And again, it really is kind of all inclusive. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a 9 to 5, if you have a 9 to 5, but a side hustle, there's really something for everyone. And I think that's why it really took off, was because we really don't ask people to come and fit into a box. There's something for everyone.
And I love that there's something for everyone and for every personality, because we are not all extroverts. But as CultureCon continues to expand and as it gets reinvented, how do you stay authentic to your original purpose and intention for creating it?
Yeah, I think we really always wanted to feel like that living room, right? It started in my living room, and there wasn't this kind of big notion. We didn't know CultureCon was even going to exist at that time, and so it's really just staying true to like what that felt like, and really what that felt like was people being their full selves, right? Like not having to hide parts of yourselves when you show up at conferences or hide parts of yourselves when you show up at work. Like, what would it look like if you brought your full self to wherever you went? So you can talk about insecure. You can also talk about business plans. You can also talk about online dating all at one conference.
Right. No, that is so important, because I feel like oftentimes when many of us have to go to work, we have to leave those other parts of ourselves behind, right? So I love that you created a space where we can be our full selves. And so it's not easy to scale a conference to the magnitude that you have and as successfully as you have in 3 years at that, right? So what are some of the roadblocks that you faced scaling CultureCon?
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically for New York, you're in an interesting market because even just in terms of numbers, like you mentioned, it usually goes from around like 3,000 to like 20,000. So there aren't a lot of venues that really can hold that sweet spot of 3,000 people. And I think just from a physical perspective, that can be a little bit tricky. But then I think beyond that, it's kind of like, okay, people really resonate with this curated approach. So how can we scale this and it not feel like you're walking into like a baseball game and
Right.
everyone's getting the same type of kind of experience? And so I think for that, we really leaned into creating these tracks. And you can follow these tracks and kind of create your own adventure. So if you are, living in the corporate space, but you want to learn more about entrepreneurship, there's a track for you. If you're thinking more of just entrepreneurship, there's kind of a track for you. And so I think those allow our guests and our community to feel kind of like there's these really small communities within like a larger space.
And something that I think a lot of our viewers are going to want to know about, you sort of created CultureCon and the Creative Collective NYC while having a full-time job, right? So first of all, kudos to you for that. But can you tell us a little bit about your day job?
For sure. So by day, I'm a communications director at NBC Universal, so specifically Bravo and E News. And so what that means is I basically do communication strategy and crisis PR for a bunch of different shows. And so when my parents ask me like, what do you do? Basically, anytime you see one of our talent, on the Today Show or doing an interview with the New York Times, someone from our team was behind the scenes crafting all of that messaging. And so I've been there for 8 years, and I love it. I really do.
Okay, and now let's talk about if there's a such thing as balance, right? How do you have this full-time job that clearly sounds like demanding, very hands-on, and also managing CultureCon and the Creative Collective?
For sure. I think, in the beginning, balance is really hard. But you also want to just make sure that you're prioritizing, right? So you never want it to kind of feel like, you're not giving your all to your day job for a passion project. And so I think for me, it was always making sure that I was giving A+ effort across the board at my full-time job while I was also kind of, kindling this passion. And then as you start to scale, you're able to grow your team. And so our team, the Creative Collective and CultureCon, is a team of over 25 people, and they're extraordinary. And so that helps a lot with the balance part of things, because if you hire people who are kind of smarter than you in their arenas, then you can just trust them to handle like that part of the program.
No, that's amazing. And something else that I wanted to touch on is discipline. I feel like it's really hard to be as successful as you've become without having some form of discipline. So, can you tell me what role that plays in your life?
I think honestly, consistency and discipline are the two most important parts of being successful, because I think, a lot of people have a lot of great ideas, and it's like, okay, I'll start the first day, I'll start the second day, and then the third week you're like, all right, never mind. I didn't realize it at first, but a lot of my background played into the discipline that I have.
Mm.
I did ballet for 14 years, and drove an hour to Atlanta Ballet, was
Oh,
there for almost like 4 hours a day, did point. And so that just, really honed into me that, great things take effort. And then I went from ballet and I did track. And I think that even honed in even more being a student athlete in terms of discipline and balance. And I wasn't even aware of how much both of those kind of affected my life. But I think that being able to kind of delay gratification for really really hard work is the secret sauce, and it's not even really that much of a secret, right? It's just kind of like endurance. That is the secret sauce, is being able to endure even when it's hard.
right. And so, for people who don't consider themselves to be disciplined, is there like any advice or tips that people can do to sort of start those practices and get better at that?
1,000%. I always, I'm super old fashioned in the sense that I still write my list and cross them off. And I think a lot of times we think of these huge empires that we want to build. And it's just so overwhelming that we're like, I'm just not even going to start. To be quite honest, I never dreamed of CultureCon. I dreamed of inviting a few people over to my house and then seeing where that took me. And I think that naivete was actually an advantage because I didn't have this huge empire in my mind. And so I would really encourage everyone to kind of think of things in terms of a brick by brick by brick. And before you know it, you look up and you've built a whole wall because you were consistent. So it's like, if today it's buying your domain and tomorrow it's starting the Instagram, like, don't be too hard on yourself. I think that's how, you can kind of sustain it.
Right. No, I love that. Success is not built overnight. So no, thank you for that. And, it's easy for people to see all the accolades and the celebrations, but there's sacrifice and there's grinding that happens, behind the scenes. So what are some of the sacrifices that you have to make in your life in order to sort of maintain, your job and CultureCon and the creative collective?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a lot about kind of what you were saying in terms of the balance. I would like to go to every happy hour. I would like to go to every brunch. And now it's hot outside. Like, it's very tempting. And I think it's kind of being able to, of course, not delay your personal life. You don't want to kind of have your head so far down that you're missing your life. But there are sacrifices in terms of, okay, if there's only 24 hours in the day, and I have a full-time job that I love, then that means I have to wake up earlier or stay up later or not go to this brunch to get this done. And so I think when you're able to boil it down in terms of like, do I really want this? Or do I just think I want this? That'll be the defining tale, because if, you'll make time for the things that you want. It's just like in any relationship, any new boy that you're dating, you'll find time to see the boy. So if you want to build this business, you'll find time to build the business.
I love that analogy. And so behind every successful person is like a tribe of people who are rooting them on, right? So I guess who's in your tribe, and who do successful entrepreneurs need to have sort of like in their circle?
For sure. I mean, my tribe is literally my North Star, and I could go on and on and on naming names in terms of it takes a village, but I think you really do need like 3 kind of main buckets of people in your life when you're trying to be a creative entrepreneur. So you need the person who can remind you of everything that you've done, right? So that when you're doubting yourself and you're like, oh, I can't do another CultureCon, they remind you that Tracee Ellis Ross came last year. But you also need the person who can reel you in when you're trying to create 4 ventures at the same time and they're just like, let's do one at a time, because you don't want to be out here spending your life savings because you just think it's a great idea.
Right.
But then you also need someone who's done it before. So an expert who can kind of be your North Star that you can bounce your ideas off of, because there's no reason in 2020 that you shouldn't be able to find any like insight or research anywhere. And I think, a lot of times people think of mentors, they think of like one person, but I have about like 8 different mentors, depending on what I'm asking. So if it's e-commerce, it's someone different than if I'm talking about a marketing campaign or a crisis PR. So I gather my mentors, and I think those kind of 3 buckets will help you, because you don't want to always be kind of like, nope, you can't do that. But you don't want to always be thinking, oh, let's build 18 CultureCon. So just right in the middle, I think is super helpful.
Okay, Imani's dropping gems, you guys. No, I love that. I love that advice. So somewhere there's a creative out there who's dreaming up the next big idea. So what advice do you have for creatives who are currently like in grind mode?
I would say, comparison is the thief of joy. I can't tell you how many times I looked over to my right and I looked over to my left and I was like, oh, well, they're doing it this way. It's just not productive. So I think really it's just so important to run your own race. You go into the grocery store, you go into the cereal aisle. There are 200 brands of cereal. They're able to coexist. What's meant for you is going to find you. So I think that's kind of been super helpful advice. And then I think the second thing is really taking the time to learn the business. So, Do you have an LLC? Do you have a separate bank account? Are
Mm.
you, really understanding your intellectual property? Did you get it trademarked? I think, we are really good at the fun, sexy, creative side of things, but you also just want to make sure that like your engine is running, smoothly.
And, we have to think about who's coming up next. So I'd love to get your take on up and coming creatives that we should be on the lookout for.
For sure. I have two that specifically come to mind. There are super talented two ladies actually. So Skylar is runs the social for the Creative Collective
Mhm.
and just super brilliant. And I call her a ninja. Just really understands trends and how to speak with an authentic voice. And her last name is Marshai, Skylar Marshai.
Okay.
Incredible. And then Sunny Day Earl is also on the Creative Collective team and the CultureCon team, and just super, her instincts are great, an amazing event planner. You all should check them both out.
I love it. Do you have any final advice for people watching who are sort of aspiring to make an impact the way you have?
For sure. I think, kind of like the gag is that whatever makes you unique or all of those kind of combined experiences is actually going to be your secret sauce. And I think the reason I want to share that is it really is different for everyone. So when I was interning, I would do so many informationals, I would take so many notes. And then I realized, not to be cliche, but really everyone's journey is so different. And so, me being the daughter of two pastors made a Bible study environment second nature for me. And so, inviting people over for a Bible study kind of like vibe was the birth of the Creative Collective. So I think just don't discount your personal story because that really is going to be what makes you stand out.
No, that's amazing. Let me see if we have any questions. Yes. So, how do you start creating the business? Like, what is that first step? Do you start a business plan? I know you said step by step, but it's so overwhelming.
Yes, it's so overwhelming. Now, I'm going to tell you this, and now listen, this is my personal experience, so don't take it to the bank and cash it. But I didn't, I know some people that spend like 6 months on a business plan. I did not do that. I literally have a one sheet that was kind of like, here's the problem, here's how I'm going to fix it, here's the first step. And I think when you start like that, it's less overwhelming because the thing about it is you're going to pivot it 1,000 different times because you really want to respond to the market. So you might come out to the market and say, I'm doing all these events, and the market will say, you don't really want that. And a perfect example is, we recently launched like a live like happy hour, and we did a poll and we asked the community, we asked 60,000 people, do you want happy hours? They're like, nope, no thanks. We actually want workshops. Thanks, Creative Collective. No thanks. Like, leave that to DJ Nice. Like,
Mm.
that doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm like, great, pivot. We're only doing workshops. And so I think, the most important thing is just to start. So if I was going to give a first step, it'd be, form an LLC, don't commingle your funds, and just really
Mm.
decide what you're going to offer. And then from there, you're just going to keep pivoting until you find your secret sauce.
Love it. All right. So we have some more questions. How do you go about reaching those first few people to come to your first event or engage with your content?
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to be an extension of who you are. So we all have our own communities, whether it's that group chat or friends that you've met. Those are going to be your early adopters. Those are going to be people that really stand for you, your foot soldiers, and they'll eventually become evangelists because they'll believe in your mission. So again, it's really not about. Don't think about the 3,000 people at CultureCon. Think about the 10 people in your apartment. And
Mm.
then those 10 people will tell 10 people who will tell 10 people. And then you'll have a sold out conference.
Mm. No, that's so good. And like you said earlier, you have to be passionate about it as well, right? And like if it's good content, people will follow it. People will want to support it. So we
Exactly.
have another question. Where do you see CultureCon and the Creative Collective and your business headed next?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, Had you asked me this pre-COVID-19, I would have told you we were going to Atlanta, popping up, and also New York. I think, we really are excited about the future. I think the mobilization of creatives of color is incredible. We are driving culture. And so wherever we're going, it's going to be where the future is going. And so I think there's kind of solace in that, is that even in this time of COVID-19, you go on Instagram Live in these Zooms, and there's so much content. And it's inspiring to see that creativity is not only thriving, it's really kind of shaping the future. So, where we're going to go is really going to be indicative of what our community wants. I think that's been what has gotten us this far. And so, whether that means, expanding to another city or doing more workshops, it's really going to be just kind of like honing into whatever you all want us to do.
Okay. And someone asked, how has CultureCon and the Creative Collective been impacted by the pandemic? And do you have any advice on how to manage these unpredictable times?
Yeah, I mean, we've been affected in a pretty drastic way. We just announced, I think the day before yesterday, that we're canceling CultureCon New York and Atlanta this year. It just felt like the right thing to do given the climate. So we'll see you all in 2021. And we're pivoting to more digital conversations. And so I think, we're taking it day by day. And to be honest, I don't know the answers of, what's next and what to expect. I think again, though, there's some sort of peace that comes with the fact that we're all living in this together. And so I think it's just be careful about when people are too prescriptive of how you should spend this time, because people are losing loved ones and grandparents. It's not really the time. If you don't feel like building another business, you shouldn't build another business. So I want to, kind of caution people on taking advice in a time like this. Like, I really think you have to lean into what feels best.
No, that's so true. And we're seeing some of the biggest conferences being postponed or being held digitally. So everyone's just kind of trying to figure it out as we go. So another question is, what advice would you give to new entrepreneurs or new freelancers in this time? So that's kind of a similar question, but if you do have any more advice, feel free to answer that.
Yeah, like I would, kind of really use this time to figure out how you can position yourself as, you know, as talent, right? So if you're a photographer, like how can you pivot? What does the community need right now? And how can you fill that gap and offer your services, right? So if you were doing portraits and you were outside, or event photography, right? That's not happening right now. But influencers still need content. So
Mhm.
can you do Zoom photo shoots? Can you, kind of do a FaceTime photo shoot? Are there ways that you can, offer Photoshop services? I think it's really kind of starts with it, and it always starts with like, what is the need? And like, how can you fill in that gap? And I think sometimes it's right in front of you, right? Like you're thinking, okay, I can't be the only person who's out of work. Like, who needs my services? Who would normally need my services? Oh, content creators. So I think it's just kind of thinking through that lens of like, what do people need? And like, how can I fill that gap?
Right. And to speak to your photographer point, I think I saw online there was a photographer who started doing portraits from his car, like so he can social distance. And so I said, people are so creative and these
Yes.
are unpredictable times, but people are really just trying to make the best of it. And so that's amazing.
Yeah, you all should check out, if you haven't already, DP Jolly is doing these incredible kind of like FaceTime portraits. And he's done a lot of work for the Creative Collective. He's an incredible photographer, but that's a perfect example of how people are pivoting like during this time.
Yeah, you have to pivot. So, should we be gaining experience in a collective community before starting a cultural or collective movement?
Hmm. I think yes, you should always be gaining experience though, right? That never ever leaves you. And so like I'm the founder, but I'm always learning, right? Like I'm always taking time to kind of think through, how is this serving the entire community? And so just be careful that you're not using that as an excuse to not start something. Like, oh, I'm just gaining experience. Like, on the other side, though, you do need that experience as a catalyst to start something. So, having my 9 to 5 was an incredible kind of, I think, contextual study for how to start a movement, because again, organization is involved,
Right.
discipline is involved. If you're just going to have like a group chat in the homies, that's not really going to get momentum. So I think it's just kind of the balance of it all.
Okay. And another question, you're on fire. What's the best way to establish a community or network from the ground up?
Hmm. I moved to New York and I didn't know a single person. A lot of people think I'm from New York, but I'm actually from Atlanta. I'm here now. And I just started, it's just like being a human. So I just think about human to human interaction and taking away the transactional part of it.
Mm,
Because if you start human to human, Adrienne, did you see last week's episode of Insecure?
I
Now
sure.
we're talking about Molly. We're talking about Issa. We're talking about friendship. And then I can say, oh my gosh, Adrienne works for the One Club for Creativity. I have this idea. Let me pitch it to her. So
Yeah.
we've already got a relationship. And so I think I've always been a people person. Again, I'm an introvert, so I enjoy intimate conversation. So I love getting coffee or sushi or really kind of intimate things like that. And that's kind of how you build relationships. And so, we look at like the Diddy's and the Kevin Harts and the Jay-Z's of the world, and it
Mhm.
looks like such a pedestal, but they were friends first. So
Right.
I would just start by just being a human, reaching out to people, getting virtual coffees with people. And then the first time you meet with someone, the second time you meet with someone, you should never ask them for anything. It's just not a good look. Just get to know them before you're asking for favors.
Yeah. And I guess just a follow-up question for that. Now that most of us are behind computers and it's harder to network in person, how do you think people can kind of reach out to folks without sounding too aggressive, digitally?
Yeah, I think it's really just about really setting it up. So before you're reaching out to someone, doing a little bit of research on them, attending their virtual talks, watching their Instagram
Mm,
stories,
okay.
reading up on them, not sliding into their DM and saying, "Tell me your story." Like if their story has been on Forbes, like it's just kind of like that's kind of like lazy reaching out. So whenever I was reaching out to people, it really was about kind of studying them for a while, not in a creepy way, but just giving time, to the fact that I'm sure they have a busy schedule. And then when you do finally reach out, providing some context on a specific ask. So
Mm,
not saying, hey, Adrienne, I just want to pick your brain on how you started. Like
right.
that, I know that seems like a compliment, but for the person receiving it, it's like, I don't know what to do with that. So it's
Right.
more so like, hey, Adrienne, I see what you're doing. I've been following you for a few months. I'd love to ask you specifically about how you make a difference in this landscape. And if you have something to add, that's
Right.
even better. So if you can kind of give them, a different point of view or a consult, win-win.
Right. And I love your advice about attending some of their conversations on Zoom and what have you, so that you can actually get to know the person and ask specific questions. So, someone asked, once you've started the LLC and the accounts, what would you recommend as the next steps for creating a solid creative brand slash platform?
Okay, so you've got your LLC, you've got your accounts. Now you've got to figure out, the actual brand breakdown, right? So that's the secret sauce is who is your audience and how are you going to reach them? And so, deciding who your audience is really just creating this avatar for who you're reaching. And that's super important because it defines how you speak to them. So
Mm,
is your consumer or guest, are they Gen Z? Are they millennial? Because that matters. They speak two different languages, right? Like, are they on YouTube or are they on Instagram?
mhm.
And then second is, what are you offering them? Is this the shade room where it's kind of like, very casual? Or is this Forbes where you need to kind of bring your very best? I think a lot of those different things people skip, but that's the secret sauce. So when you come to the Creative Collective event or you come to CultureCon, the reason it feels different is we spent so much time literally dissecting who's coming and how we can super serve them. And I think also realize you might not be for everyone. Niches are incredible.
Yeah.
You really want to, like, cater and zoom in to, whoever it is. And from there, just put it into the universe and people will give you feedback and you just go from there.
Now, I love your point about niches. I remember watching something Issa Rae said, and she's like, I didn't create Insecure for everybody. I created it for my group of friends.
Yeah.
And so she like sort of knew who her market was and she stayed authentic to that. So I love that point. Someone asked, how do you organize your ideas before pitching it or presenting it on a public platform?
Oh gosh, these are good questions.
Right?
Oh my gosh. How do I? So I usually organize my ideas. It starts with like a different seed, a really small seed, and I'll say, oh, we should do a da 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 da. And then I really refine it. So again, for me, I am old fashioned in the sense that I like to write things down. So I have a journal beside me now. I have a journal beside my bed, and I will just like write down different things. And before I want to present it to the team or before I want to present it to a client, I love to refine it. So, you really want to make sure that your pitch, your idea is bulletproof and that you're not thinking of the answers, as you're kind of presenting something. And so for an idea like CultureCon, again, it's like, what makes CultureCon different? Who is it for? And, what are we serving? All those different things. Again, it goes back to the discipline because it's not fun to spend hours thinking through words and phrases, but it makes all the difference when you're trying to really get your idea across.
Love it. And what are the foundations of building a cultural movement?
Oh my gosh. Woo! The foundations of building a cultural movement, I think, one is having, your roots in the culture. Because, if it's not authentic, it's just not going to work. We've seen so many examples of where, different initiatives have been kind of thrown into, the collective consciousness and kind of rejected because it just felt stale and tone deaf. So you need to have your ear to the streets. You also need to be coming from a place that's authentic. So if you are working at a company where that doesn't really feel like it's an authentic extension of you, then you've got to go to that community and allow them to advocate and be the experts on the culture. And then I think, the second thing is it's really just a pairing of that cultural kind of like, it's hard to explain secret sauce with the discipline and the kind of corporate structure that sometimes we are often rejecting. Those two things actually can become hand in hand. And I think we really wanted to do CultureCon to show people that those two ideas aren't mutually exclusive, that you can start a conference on time and that on time, and that you can also, talk about, so many different things that are driving culture, and that's really it. I mean, it's really just about like, what if you could take the idea that's in your head or take the group chat that you're already doing and bring that to scale. So CultureCon is the group chat to scale.
I love that. CultureCon is the group chat to scale.
Yeah.
Someone asked, have you ever thought of scaling the model of the CC NYC for other niches like Latins in America or LGBTQ community, other minorities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are an intersectional group of people. There's not one way to be Black, and there's not one way to kind of approach it. And so, it's definitely something that's important to us, is to always continue to identify our blind spots and be representative of those different communities. I'm not sure we'll do specific like spin-offs of the Creative Collective, but I do want to make sure that we are being more inclusive in our programming and our conversations. Yeah, for sure.
I love that. Okay, you have a fan here. Someone says, as a loyal Imani Ellis fan, I am awaiting the masterclass. Is it in the works?
Do you guys want a master class? Like, there's so many master classes. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know about you, Adrienne, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm someone that only wants to deliver if it is requested. I don't need to be on Instagram Live with one person. Like,
Well, somebody wants it, so
well,
you put it
you
out
know
there.
what? I will, if you all want that, I will definitely do that. So just let me know what you want me to teach you. I will teach
Our,
you.
our audience has been so engaging. Okay, so these are the final two questions because I know, oh, okay, we have 3 questions coming in. Okay, these are going to be our final questions. So this one's kind of long. I'm not a social media dinosaur, but I'm increasingly unhappy having my life be consumed by online activity, which means my integrity, that I'm resistant to creating things that require online activity. I get that online tools are to be managed and balanced, but do you have some thoughts about countering this? Or do you foresee us moving back to more in-person engagement post-pandemic?
Such a good question. And it's honestly a dilemma that I felt myself. Again, I'm an introvert. So sometimes it feels like Instagram and social media can be very performative and it's exhausting. I would recommend everyone read Alex Wolf's book, Resonate. It
Mhm.
is so good. And it helps you really kind of bridge the connection between humanity and technology, and really look at technology as a living, breathing, kind of mobile thing. I think sometimes we're so anti-technology, and for good reason.
Mhm.
It's very kind of it's so much to tackle, but I think there's also ways that you can combat that. Because again, as a publicist, with my publicist hat on, I do have to say that yes, social media, it's like your working resume. It's your living portfolio. When you go to a client, the first thing they're going to do, probably before they check out your website, is check out your Instagram. And we can hate that, but that's just the truth of where we are. But that doesn't mean you have to live on Instagram, right? Like you can post something to your Instagram and then go live your best life. And even for me, I've really been lately kind of limiting myself to an hour and a half on Instagram, and then I'm learning how to make short ribs. So do try to find the balance so that you're not always kind of hating it. But look at it as a resource and a tool and inspiration. And if you're following people that every time you see something, you're not inspired, you need to unfollow them and curate it like a mood board so that everything that's on your feed is inspiring you and not making you feel like you're less than.
Mm. Balance is key.
Yes.
So someone said, how do you stay engaged with your specific market?
That's a good question. I think it's kind of, it goes back to that authenticity, right? Like, how can we make sure that we're super serving this niche in an authentic way? And so, a lot of times, it's really taking the balance between what you feel the market is missing and then just doing little taste tests. So, we do testing all the time, right? We try different things. And if the audience isn't there, we just don't do it anymore. So, a lot of times when you start a business, there can be this emotional attachment that I started it, I can't pivot now, like I already put it out there. But brands pivot all the time. They start these different things. They're like, oh, no consumers bought that. They canceled the thing. And so I think for me, the Creative Collective is a beautiful, breathing entity, but it's not Imani. So if someone doesn't like an initiative from the Creative Collective, I don't take that personally. In fact, that's incredible data that we
Mhm.
can use to pivot. So, yeah, just I think it really just goes back to why are you starting this? And how can you be super specific to like who you're serving? And then you'll see the momentum really start to kick up.
Right. I love your advice about not taking things personal. And I feel like as a business owner, you have to not take things personal. So,
Yeah.
all right, our final question for real. But thank you all for being so engaged and asking all these amazing questions. We really appreciate it. So, someone said, thank you for your insights. I'd like to know your thoughts on resourcefulness with community building. So, what ways have been successful for you in gathering the necessary resources to build community?
Hmm. I think, it's a few things, right? It's taking the time to, you know, read a lot of things that are out there. So if you're starting a new business, one of the books that I would suggest is Dear Founder. Incredible. And you can kind of go through every different section in terms of entrepreneurship. I'm also reading right now Contagious, Why Do Things Catch On? I think you all should all
Mhm.
read it. It's incredible. And it talks about different triggers and emotional triggers and why we like certain things and why we don't like other things. A lot of it really is just the human condition. Um, and then again, you know, kind of create your own almost like business school. Find people who are doing incredible things. Morgan DeBon from Blavity, Elaine Welteroth has incredible engagement, and was able to pivot her career, and follow them. Carlene Roy from the Vanity Group, and use them as your North Stars. Study what they're doing. What are they reading? There's no reason, again, to like start from scratch when there's so many amazing women building things, and men. I'm sorry, and men.
And people are loving your suggestion about Contagious. I love that you're always staying up on the new books that are coming out and your peers. So take notes, folks. With that, I'm going to wrap things up. This has been such an engaging conversation. I'm just so impressed by the amount of questions that have come in, and Imani was just answering them. She's like, come on, keep going. And so thank you so much for being such an amazing guest today. If you want to learn more about CultureCon or the CC NYC, you can visit the ccnyc.com. If you want to learn more about the One Club and our Creative Month, you can visit oneclub.org. And that wraps it up. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you all.
Thank you.